enjoy.
Welcome, everybody. Mandy, is there anything else you need to start off with before I sort of kick off?
Well, no, I mean, this is Kanj. If you don't know Kanj, she's a Sri Lankan born artist who is like a colourful rainbow. She's going to do this session about joy and happiness, using colour and mark making for joy and happiness, which we all need on this Blue Monday in January. Go ahead, Kanj.
Definitely. It's very grey, very cold, very wet in Wolverhampton. So everything in my studio is the opposite of that, thankfully. I'm hoping some of that will sort of filter into your day today. So for those of you who don't know who I am, most of you do, I recognize you all. I'm Kanj Nicholas. I'm a visual artist. I'm multidisciplinary, which involves using different types of paints, like acrylic. I'm comfortable using acrylics, watercolor, and I dabble in oils as well, less frequently. And that's only because I don't seem to have enough time in the calendar year to fit it all in. I'm also a textile artist and I love felting. That's a big part of me, which when I start doing it, I tend to work in felt for a long period, like 6 months. At the moment, I'm immersed in acrylics, and that's what I'm here to share with you. So today it's as much about color and mark making and how my process works, how I do things, and I will take you through it step by step. Bearing in mind, this is only an hour, and you're probably unlikely to take away with you a finished piece. But if you can sort of get a glimpse of what I do and how I do it, that's all I could hope for. And ultimately, it's about a bit of time for yourselves, about caring for yourselves, your well-being, your happiness. And if this color palette can't fill you up with a bit of joy and happiness, I'm not sure what will. We need some color today on a gray day. So, time for yourself. I'm just going to talk a little bit about, I've set a little theme, and this came about through this project. Sometimes I take on work which starts off unknown as to where do I begin, what do I do, but it grows. It grows into something bigger than what I thought it would be. Same with this. This has got me down a road of being kind to myself and passing on that message to others about thinking about ourselves. We're all busy. We wear different hats in our daily lives. We're juggling. We're trying to keep all the balls afloat, up in the air. Being mum, being a family person, looking after your home, working, being involved in the community, all of that we are juggling on a daily life. Now, if you carry on doing that, I run the risk of burning out, getting fatigued. And the only way for me, I've become more and more mindful about this as I've got older, and as my work life the balance has become a bit more difficult in terms of I have to be careful how I manage the balance. Being kind to myself, making time to do the things I love is one of the ways I try to keep that balance and keep me topped up. Now for myself, what makes me happy, what gives me joy, what fills up my tank? I love being in nature. I love going for walks. I love working in my garden or popping into my allotment. Everything involves being outside in nature. All of that fuels me. So I've got to be careful to make that time to stop what I'm doing and take myself out of my daily grind and the monotony of it all so that I can feel topped up. Likewise, painting, making art. Now that's a different one. That is work for me, but it's also what fuels me and keeps me alive. When I paint, I feel so happy. I feel complete. And it's like the true Kanj comes out. Now, when I get immersed in family life, That is the opposite of what painting does for me. So this is about making time for all of us as creatives. We need to fuel our creativity. If we don't, we neglect that aspect. That's where fatigue sets in. That's where we are prone to burnout. So a little message for you to just think about while we're painting with color and while I'm showing you my techniques and my process. How can you be kind to yourself? What are the things that fill up your tank? What gives you joy? What gives you happiness? If it's painting, whatever it is that fills up your tank, that's what you could think about as you're working today. So it's just a little theme I've set, but ultimately it's the process of this that I'm sharing. I've left this on the easel just to show you. This painting sort of captures everything that I do. It's got the mark making, it's got the color, it's got a story behind it. This is my childhood. So a lot of what I do is from where I come. My roots in Sri Lanka. I was born there, grew up there. As much as I've been here in Britain for nearly 30 years, which is a long time, ultimately that Sri Lankan girl pops out. She'll never go away. She still dreams about that color. She still loves being out in nature because my mum was a massive nature lover and I get that from her. So no matter what I do, this is what it boils down to. These are my roots. This is where I come from. This is my heritage. It's who I am. And now in this process of painting in acrylics, something I didn't do much previously, I can see myself getting more and more immersed into it. And the only way to work it out of my system, if I ever work it out, that is to keep painting. And every time I paint, I feel happy. And likewise, you too. Every time, whatever you do, the more you do it, the more joy you feel. So what I'm going to do is start talking to you a little bit about the process. We don't have a great deal of time for painting, but I'm going to make sure you have the maximum of today for that. If I take this off now, because what you will see underneath is blank. Starting with a blank canvas is never easy. But here's something that I've done for you to give you an idea, if you can see that. I painted this for this workshop. Can you see that? You can, good. So just talking about the self-care bit, this is something that I came up with for this workshop specifically. There is a lady, and I think it's me, but maybe it's someone else, maybe it's you, sitting outside pouring herself a cup of tea from a pot. Now, that pot of tea could be used literally as having a cup of tea outside in nature and stopping to enjoy herself. It could be taken metaphorically as well. We can't pour from an empty cup. We all need to top our cups before we can pour out for others. So you can look at it two ways. This is my way of showing you all the techniques that I've talked to you about, or I'm going to talk to you about in this little canvas. And it's about the joy. There again, I've gone back to my roots. There's banana trees and there's always cats around and birds around and dogs around. So that's just crept in without me thinking about it. Now, this is the final stage of any painting, any process. So I'm going to talk you very briefly through the 4 stages, but in reverse order. If you think this is stage 4, painting completed, you can put it away. Before that is the fun bit. And that's what we're going to focus on today, is basically putting color down. Now, that painting which I just showed you started life like this. You would never have thought, would you, all the greens and blues that were there were actually not there when I first started. So this stage is stage 3, where you just put color down and you start making marks. And that's what I'm going to talk you through as we do it. So as I get my blank canvas out, likewise, if you have a piece of paper or a sketch pad, just have some fun. It's not about doing anything perfect today. It's just using your tools, your brushes, and making some marks. And this is the base layer to fill up your canvas, nothing white, although I've got some white there. Ideally, no whites, no canvas to show. Just get color down, put some marks down using the tools that I will show you. You can use anything, and I'll show you a few examples of what I do use. Stage 3 is to get your blank canvas. Can you all see that, what I have drawn? It's just a scribble, nothing really is a scribble of a person there. So this is a person, me in this instance, because it's all about self-care, and that's going to be a series for me, which I feel that I want to explore that a bit further, take me into a bit of thinking about how I can top myself up and a bit of self-care. But the subject is going to be set outdoors in nature. This is like a fountain. And the figure here is pouring water to the top of the fountain. Now, a fountain, we all know, the water works its way down. And it's the same with us. When we fill up our cup, it then pours out and other people can benefit from it. But if the top one is empty, nobody can benefit from it, neither can we. So that's going to be the next painting, which is going to be a large one. And from that water source, we're feeding ourselves, but then others too will begin to benefit from us. And in this instance, there'll be wildlife drinking from the water. The vegetables growing around will be irrigated. The little creatures benefit. So that it's a nature theme, but the subject being top up our tanks, fill up our cups, because it'll filter out and fill others as well. Right, now on to tools very quickly. I've got a little selection of tools, from bottle lids, milk bottle lids. We all have those, don't we? These are the caps that come with paintbrushes. So if this is a paintbrush, you see, when you go and buy it first from the shop, it comes with a little cover like this. Save them, they're brilliant. I use them so much. And I've got a few, like that's a glue stick spatula, makes some great, brilliant marks with the flat end. This is a pottery tool, which I've had for years. That's good too. Now, my favorite tool is this. It's got to be old credit cards, library cards, whatever it is that you have, collect them, use them. I use the back of it. You can bend them to get a curve. You can use the tip of it just to make little flecks. And the other thing I use is toilet roll holders. They're great for circles. Chop them once you've finished. We will have another stash of them, I'm sure. So what I would say is keep a lookout for tools from your daily life, from your house, from your garden. Here's another one I use a lot, bottle lids. The end of ballpoint pens, if anyone, you can see that it's got a little circle, and the other bit has a point, which I use as well. Keep them, they're very useful. In terms of brushes, anyone who is starting for the first time, My brushes are very basic. I've battered them and I do need a new stock. But the ones that I do use a lot are a flat brush, a round brush, and I tend to have a large one and a medium one. And in the round brush, I'll have a bigger one, this one, and a thin one for detail. And that's it, pretty much. Okay, paints. Paints, use whatever you have. Please don't go spending a fortune on expensive paints. When you feel like you want to take it to the next level, by all means. But my brand is this Golden. They're delicious, they're luscious. I love them. This is what I tend to use for all my acrylics. So step one, are you ready? For anyone who's ready to, do some drawing and painting with me, you can use a sketch pad. If it's acrylic, it's good if you have an acrylic sketch pad because the paper is thicker so that it doesn't buckle really. If you're using a canvas, make sure it's primed. Although canvases do come primed, it's good to put a couple more coats before you start. Colors, I tend to, if you want to do something more intuitive and nothing illustrative, like I've drawn a person there, it doesn't mean that you have to do that. It could be more of a mark making exercise of just putting down some color and making a few marks for today. If it is illustrative, then just be aware of the context of where your placement is going to be, like if the person is going to be there, if this is going to be foliage. It's just to give you an idea of what sort of colors to use. Right, I'm going to start now. I'm getting a few colors down on my palette. I tend not to think too much, and likewise, this is just for you to have some fun. The more you think about it, the more it becomes very controlled. This stage is very much about you playing, making marks, and having some fun. Flat brushes are really good at this point. I don't think a lot at this stage. I just put the color down, I make patterns. And if I go over my drawing, that's fine. You can start bringing in some mark making at this stage. This is a big canvas to fill today. So I'm not aiming to go all the way around, but if I can sort of focus on one area and show you how to get some pattern down, some color down, that's probably more realistic for an hour. Now I'm beginning to use this little tool, which is the top of a paintbrush, the cover, the plastic cover. The one thing about acrylics, it's slow. Although the paint dries fast, you still need to be careful not to rush it, because I get really impatient, and even though I've been doing this a lot recently, I still get impatient and I still end up making my colors muddy. So it's good to wait between layers. Otherwise, we'll all end up with brown color paintings, and that's going to be a little bit less joyful. So if you have any neon colors or really light, bright colors, it's good to get them at this stage. It's easier to get the light colors down first and work from light to dark. Now, this is one of my most favorite colors. You'll see this a lot in my paintings. Can you see how the colors change when you put different, like this is an ink, so it's lighter. And when you put it over a dark one, you can still see the blue, but in a different shade. And that's what I try and do. I try and lay them one on top of the other. Now these areas are going to be foliage, so I'll get a few more of these. I do love having the symbol of a sun somewhere. When you get tired of using one color, feel free to stop and use another. Entirely up to you. So there's another lovely neon color that I like, which is the orange one. You can buy neon inks in any brand. So it doesn't have to be golden or anything else, just whatever you can find, really. So this stage really takes me days. To be honest, I'm trying to show you this now in a sort of a snapshot version of what I do. It takes me days. It would take me at least 3 days to slowly create layers and patterns. And once I'm happy with that, that's when I start bringing the painting together and painting over to create the shapes. Now, can you see the drip happening? I quite like a few drips. And for those of you who like splattering, here's your chance to do it. It's not. How's everyone getting on with their mark making? Having fun? Thumbs up? Good. Now the darker colors come later, and I'm going to hold fire on these for just a bit longer because I'm keeping an eye on the time as well, because those are the colors I tend to use once the background is finished to bring in some shape. Greens are another lovely color that I use a lot. So let's get some green down. Now, although I have drawn myself in the middle or a person in the middle, you can see I've obliterated it completely. But that's how I tend to work. I take no notice of what I have drawn, and I fill up my canvas like so. Because one of the things I've noticed when I do draw and I stick to it, it becomes quite tight. My painting feels tight, and the liveliness and the movement seems to be a bit more restricted. And I've only learned that as I've painted and painted and painted, because I started off doing that. And now I've sort of freed it up a bit. So by going over, although I know that's where the figure is going to be, it isn't at this point. Now see what I mean about dirty marks. I've just created a dirty mark with the orange, simply because the orange wasn't dry. Now here's something I should have known better, but I still made that mark. So we all do this. Stop, that's what I'll do. I'm not going to touch the orange till it's really well and truly dry. I'm going to do a little, this is my jar, now it's brown. The moment it looks a bit sludgy, get rid of it. Let's swap to another one. I've prepared myself with 3 jars of water just in case, to save me rushing to the sink and topping up. Right, I'm going to put a few blues here because I know the sky will definitely be around this area. Now I've got a lid and I'm making a few marks. So the credit card, that is, white is a color I tend to use more towards the end, just to highlight, get some line work in and make those lovely little details like dots. But you can still use some white at this stage if you want. Okay, I'm going to now bring you on to, I'm nowhere near I would be if this was a painting I'm doing at home, taking my time. But I'd like to show you how I start working my trees now. And then creating some line work, some patterns around trees. I do a lot of trees, so it makes sense for me to show you how I do that. If we say we're going to do a tree there, So in a way, this is reverse to what we do. We're blocking out areas and bringing out what's in the background. That's how I tend to work. It's a negative form of painting. So we're creating spaces from the background. Can you see what's happening here? So that's kind of a bit the beginning of something. And then you could add more pattern to them. So this could almost be a palm tree. Now, just because I'm showing you that palm tree there doesn't mean that my finished painting will have a palm tree. I'm just trying to show you the possibilities of where you could see things. I tend to look at my patterns and then see something and then bring it to life. And that happens more intuitively, although some aspects of my painting are already set. I know the fountain will come here. The colors I've used are kind of what I want in the background of it. I'll use the whites to bring out the fountain, and I'll show you that as well. In terms of the palm tree, now we've got the beginnings of something. I grew up with a lot of banana trees and coconut trees in my garden, so hence it's there already for me to tap into. Now for the credit card, I can't wait to show you this bit. Let's see, what color shall we go with? We'll get the teal. So once you put your, I'm going to show you paint palettes. I mean, mine's an ice cream box lid. I have 4 of them, so I can use as many, you keep using them. So the colors there, I've got my little tool, tend to run it like that, and then so that's one way. And then a slight variation to that is you sort of fan it out. Is that looking like a palm tree? It's the beginning of it. Now, likewise for the actual trunk, we can going back to circles, I seem to do a lot of circles in my work, and those could be the coconuts. And then there's another little lovely technique, which I'm sure, can't think who's not going to love this. Little sticks. So there's one end which is a bit more pointy and the other which is flat. It's got a circle there again. And with the other end of it, actually, I'll show you a different tool. This one is, I used to work in pottery. This is going back early years when I got into Britain. This is a pottery tool which has a metal end and a little bobble at the top of it. I don't do much pottery anymore, but it's useful for this. So there's a few different ways of making dots and circles and dashes. And it's about just trying different mark making techniques. You can cross hatch. That's another thing I tend to do a lot. You might not see it, but so there's different ways of getting your patterns in here. And with the palm tree, you can go back with some color. Let's see, what shall I put in there? Maybe a bit of pink. That I did not because I wanted to do that, but there was some pink left on my tool and I tend to rub it, and it's all texture, which sort of creates interesting layers. Now what I'm going to show you is the beginning of a fountain. How do I create a definite illustration, if that's something that you'd like to learn? I need a thinner brush for that, so I'm using this. Now there's already a bit here which looks like a fountain, and I'm going to use that. This stage you can either use a dark color to bring out that, or you can use the white. I'm using a white because I find that it gives, I can always get a darker color on the white. So this is going to be my fountain in the middle, which is center stage to the painting. And then there's going to be the next tier. Can you see that? Because it's in white, I just wonder if you can see it. Can you? Yes. It's the same with figures. I tend to use the white now. I'll mark it out over my painting, even though I've done a sketch and a drawing. I then cover it all up with pattern and marks and layers. And this could take 3 to 4 days of building up, building up, building up. And then you stop. And then the white color is how I block out where I want my figures. I've been doing a lot of illustrative work recently, so the figures come first before anything else, because figures are tricky to paint, I've realized. They're not easy to get the proportions right. So I'd rather get them done first and do the rest afterwards. So that's the top of the fountain. How are we doing for time, Mandy?
We're on 11:45, Kanj.
Okay, that's not bad. I'll do this bit, and then you can see what the fountain is going to look like. Okay, let's bring this fountain to life. So I'm going to try and put some darker colors around it to lift it up. It's not easy painting at this angle. I never paint like this. You do realize that. I don't stand here and paint in this awkward angle. So it might be a bit crooked, but that's only because I'm standing in a weird spot. You can see it now coming to life, can't you? So as you're painting, you can see other shapes like this orange bit. I'm going to preserve it as a circle and then come back and create something with it. Now this area could be a different green. I don't want to keep using the teal everywhere. So let's use a different green for that. Maybe even a bit of yellow, that might be good.
Kanj, Vinjay's messaged you from India, and he said he likes your pure colour and the traditional style.
Oh, fantastic. PJ, is it?
Vijay, yes.
Vijay, oh, how lovely, all the way from India. Hi, Vijay, I'm glad you're enjoying this. So there's another, now that's an interesting shape which I don't want to lose. So I'm gonna try and keep that so that I can think about it later before I lose it. I can see it. Hi, Vijay. So one of the things that it's worth thinking or remembering is when you're in the spur of the moment, you know, you're carried away, you're immersed, you're whacking the paint on, it's easy to forget and lose some special bits. Like this is interesting to me. I don't want to lose that. So I'm going to leave it, have time to think about it, and I'll come back to it later. So all I'm trying to do is lift that fountain shape. There again, I don't want you lose that patterned area. So I'm just going to paint around it. There's something lovely that could be like a leaf maybe. So you can see the essence of the fountain. And I say essence only because it's just basically an outline. Now, as you're going through, you can see where you can begin to change your colors. It doesn't have to be the same color everywhere. Feel free to, you know, mix it with another shade of, say, maybe yellow to bring down the tone a little bit. If it's horrible, you let it dry and you paint over it. That's the beauty about acrylics. You know, you can make mistakes. You don't have to worry about it because once it's dry, you can sort it out. Likewise here, you know, once you think, oh no, I wish. The only bits I would say is when you've got some interesting marks, it's good to wait a little bit and not rush it. Like this, I'm going to try and keep that for later so that I can decide what to do. Now here I can see a leaf shape emerging, so I'm going to keep that. So that could be a plant somewhere. But we'll come to that. So this is a little snapshot of how I work. I could go on like this all day long, but you can see how to lay down your color, how to make some marks, and just build that blank canvas up and basically cover your canvas or your piece of paper in your sketchbook, cover it with pattern, shapes, color. In terms of color, if you're not confident with color, now I tend not to think too much about what colors I'm using, but that's because I'm wired up like that. If you're someone who is more hesitant with color, maybe have a tighter palette, like set yourself, I'll have 5 colors and no more, and try and work with those. But within the 5 colors, you can still intermix the colors and get different shades of it. So that's just one way of, if you're not feeling confident about using color, limiting it helps. But if you're like me and you think, oh, well, I'm fairly confident doing color, go for it. Just put what you want. And then in the blocking out process, you start tightening it up, bringing it together. And by doing that, you kind of lose some of the colors. So if you can see, this is sort of in comparison. I showed you this. It's the beginning of an illustration of a lady in a hammock in a tropical garden. And one of the things that feeds me is having a nap, especially in the afternoon around 3 o'clock. You know, if you're in the tropics, you need a nap, siesta time. And even now I find when I'm really tired and depleted, I just put myself to bed and have a little kip, and I feel so much better, and I'm able to function much more effectively for all concerned in the household, rather than being grumpy and miserable. So this will be about having a nap, making time to have a nap, whether it's in a tropical garden or in your own garden or in your home. It's still the same thing, having a nap. So that was the beginning of that. And over the next few days, I'll be working on this and bringing it to life. And I'll put it on Facebook, and so you can have a look and see what it looks like. And this is also about being in nature, keeping that tank filled, because if you don't fill it, you run the risk of running empty yourself. A bit like cars, we need, cars don't just run, they need fuel. We're the same, it's the same thing. We need our source of fuel. So if you're happy to draw it to a close now, Mandy, what do you think?
Yeah. So do you want to do a bit of Q&A, Kanj?
Are we okay for time to stop now? Or
we have plenty of time. Plenty of time. I've seen quite a few people busy working away, painting along with you, Kanj. So it would be nice to see what everyone's produced, if they want to share. Yeah.
Yeah, let's have a look at that.
I can see Julia's been working away.
Julia, let's have a little look at what you've been busily creating. You'll have to unmute yourself.
It's a little bit muddy in places, but it's very colourful.
Oh yes, gosh, yes. That's lovely.
Very colourful.
That's what I said about muddy, isn't it? Even I hate it, particularly oranges. They are an absolute pain to work with. You've got to leave them alone till they're well and truly dry. Otherwise, it ends up being brown. Yeah, and I do that even now. It's just, you get carried away. You just want to keep going. And but with acrylic, it's a waiting process. Wait, leave it, start another one while you're waiting. That's how I tend to do. I've got a couple on the go, so I tend to switch between the two.
Would you put a figure in that one now, Kanj?
Yes, so I am going to put a figure, but I had decided after I did the drawing that this, what's the word I'm looking for? The structure that I initially had in my mind, or there is a word that's not coming to me. Anyway, the composition, right? The composition had a big figure in the center, but I changed my mind and I was going to make this smaller and create sort of a bird's eye view of a landscape of my allotment, basically. So there'll be different plots coming through. Maybe it might have to be a tropical allotment. So there'll be a vegetable patch, a little house, and trees, and this fountain will be in the center, and the person will be smaller. So that's why I've hidden. But what I will do is, if I'm to put in fact, spur of the moment, quick display while I'm, if I can show you how I then put my figures in, that will help you, wouldn't it, to understand at what point and how do I do it. Right, let's get some colors on for that. So if we go according to this, the figures got to be basically bigger than the fountain. It won't be when I do this painting and finish it. It'll be all different. But for today's demo, in fact, I'm going to use my flat brush. So you can see I got the placing wrong, but it doesn't matter. I really don't fret about such details because everything is covered up later on. And the number of positions I keep changing with my figures, because figures are not easy to paint, you know. I have to think a little bit, get the proportions right and all that. So if that's the person, there's the head, and then they're pouring out of a watering can. So the watering can will be this. And that's the other hand. So really you get the skin tones down first, whatever color you wish to use. And then this is where your white comes in. If it's a watering can, I'll tend to, you know, mark it out. Like, I try and keep the patterns though. I like keep preserving areas. And then in terms of their clothing, there again, it's good to preserve the background for now, because later on, if you think, oh no, actually I want them to wear something really bright or purple or pink, you can go back and add that on. But for now, I'm just gonna sort of create that shape with white. So these are the legs. Now I'm finding it at this angle. Is she looking too long? She looks a bit really tall to me. So let's shorten it a bit. Now this is where things become interesting. You can see that orange that I preserved, which was going to be a flower. That could be as part of her dress or dungarees, which I love wearing at the allotment. I have 2 allotment dungarees, and it's easy to blend in with what's around you. You know, nobody sees you till you sort of bob up and they go, oh, hi there, Kanj, how are you today? Because, so you can put whatever clothing you want. My favorite outfit is my dungaree. That's all I'm trying to say here. And then because I've got the orange, it might be nice to sort of, that could be a sunflower as part of her dress. And then there's this area. That could be another sunflower. So everything that normally you would wear or see, I tend to exaggerate it in my painting. So if it's a small sunflower, make it bigger because it makes it more impactful, more vibrant. And you don't have to be afraid to do that because it's your painting. And this is where I'm going to bring my little interesting tool to create circles on her dress. With her top part, let's do something about that. Now that we're on, now that we're using yellow, I think it'll be nice to create a bit of yellow there. So that's become quite muddy, only because the black, the layer below it is not quite dry. But that's okay, it gives you an idea. Now going back to Mandy, I promise you I'll stop in the next 5 minutes.
It's fine, Kanj, it's fine.
See, it's very hard to stop, isn't it? You know, when I want to show you all the little elements, but it is a big canvas. So I'm just mimicking that shape up there in a different color. In between using your little tools, make sure you wash them and dry them, because I've clogged up so many lovely tools because I've not been careful with them. And then you just go back to your skin tones and tighten up. At this stage, I tend not to worry too much about like the arms and the fingers, because that is a slow process of getting it right. All I would say is get the proportions right, get the colors, what you think you'd like to. So in terms of hair, just jumping, how do I do hair? My children, my son saw what I painted as a sample piece and said, "Oh, Mom, that hair is quite wild, isn't it? A bit like yours." But I'd exaggerated that. And if it is curls that you want, start off with something like this. And then bring in another color. I haven't used many blues, but I do usually use a lot of blues in my colors, and the tones vary by adding white or adding yellow, which brings it to a green. But I find that I use a lot of blues in all my work. And you can bring in some browns as well with mixing different colors. And then again, once you've sort of put a few marks, what you do is, or what I tend to do is I go back into my background. That brings out the hair, although the color is not dark enough. Once that's dry, I'd probably use a different color on top, which is a thinner color like an ink, or some of the acrylic colors I use are liquid acrylics versus the heavy body ones. So the heavy body acrylics I tend to use in the backgrounds once that first stage is, second, third stage is finished. That makes everything else sort of pop out. How does that sound so far? Does anybody else, want to ask me any technical questions? Thank you, Maria. Anybody else?
Thank you. I've really enjoyed this. It's been a lovely way to start the day, and I love your way of painting. It's very brave and free and wonderful. Thank you.
It is. And you can all unmute yourselves, because feel free to ask me questions, unmute yourselves, because I think in terms of the time frame we have, this is about all we could aim, and I've tried my best to cover all the little elements of what I would use. Only you have to multiply it by like 10 to get the number of days right for what you want to create. In terms of, you mentioned brave. You shouldn't be afraid. That's all I can say. With acrylics, don't be afraid, because everything that you don't like about it can be changed. You just have to leave it aside for 20 minutes and it'll be dry. And then you cover it up and you start again. I do that many, many times with all of my paintings, especially with the figures, because I find figures a bit more, you'd never think when you see the finished work, but figures are tricky. So I put the arms too long or legs too short or proportion, but then everything is covered up and then I rework it until you're happy with it. And with the, sorry, carry on.
I've got some basic questions. I've really enjoyed this. I haven't done any artwork whilst I've been watching, but I'm absolutely fascinated. And I'm fascinated by the negative painting, actually. It's very interesting. I just got a couple of questions, though. Are you actually working on paper at the moment, Kanj, on that piece of art?
It's on canvas, Julie.
It's on canvas, okay.
Yeah. I tend to use paper if I go traveling because it's easy to pack.
Yeah.
But in my studio, it's usually canvas.
Yeah. So what weight of paper would you usually use if you were going traveling?
It needs to be fairly heavy. So when you search art suppliers, that's where you get these better, nicer papers. They have a range of acrylic papers, a range for watercolor. With acrylic, I would say the heavier it is, the better. I like having a bit of texture on my paper when I go traveling. But certainly for the heavier ones, they're a tad more expensive. They're not cheap to buy. You could start off with the works. They have, you know, a standard range. They're good to start with till you find your groove.
Yeah. And oh, sorry, go on.
Once you sort of gain confidence, that's when you look for the more quality papers. I wouldn't jump in and go and buy them now.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And what about, you mentioned about the neon paint being ink? Is it particular kind of ink?
Like, these are, I use Golden Range only because I think they're just absolutely amazing. There's a range of professional, these are professional quality paints. Sennelier is pretty good as well. There's another brand.
Sorry, what was that? Sorry? The brand?
Sennelier. But at this stage, Julie, what I would advise is go to the works. Get some standard acrylic paints. The point is to start. Yeah. Just because, this is one of the things, just because you have high quality paints doesn't mean that you're going to produce a high quality painting. Yeah. It doesn't work like that. I have started with the most basic from the works, and slowly over the years you upgrade. Yeah. So for anybody who is at the beginning of this journey, go to the works. They have a good range. Start off there. You've got to work out how it feels, what you like, your colors, the tool. Yeah. Just play. Keep playing for as long as you feel that you're ready to now move to the next level. Yeah.
That's great, thank you. Do you use water to dilute the acrylic paint as you're painting, or not really?
Not really, because I like. Maybe it's the type of paint I use. They don't really need water to dilute it. Okay. The heavy body paints, when I start using it, even then I like it heavy. Yeah. And I would dilute it with an acrylic medium rather than the water to give it a glazed feel. I tend to only use water to wash my brushes, really.
Yeah, okay, that's great, thank you.
Anybody else to fire a question at
me? Just a quick question. You know, at the very start you said about make sure you put a couple of coats on your canvas. Is that to make the paint flow better, or is that, you know, because you buy them, they've normally been coated, haven't they?
Yeah, so ready-made canvases, they come primed anyway. I find the amount of prime that is put on it is not sufficient because it still feels quite porous. It feels scratchy, and that's not how it should be starting a painting. So I tend to prime it. I put 2 more coats on top. That's just me. Maybe I'm fussy, I don't know, but I give it a couple of coats of primer. Primers, as you can buy anywhere.
But have you ever then do a wash of a colour just to take the canvas away completely?
No, this is what I do. So it's a patchwork of colour.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how thin it is or how thick it is. Thinner is better because it's better to build from thin to thick. That's how I work. But in terms of one colour, is not how I paint. I use a patchwork of different colors. And there again, although I know it's going to be an illustration of some way or form, and there's going to be figures or there's going to be this or that, when it actually comes to putting the color down, all of that goes out the window. And I basically start from scratch. So it's like a meditative process that I go through. I don't think I paint, the music is on, and it's slow and there's a rhythm to it. And once that stage is completed, and that could take a few days to build up layer upon layer upon layer, when I'm ready to bring it to the next stage, that's when I start thinking, okay, the figure was here, or the tree I could see was going to be here, or the fountain was going to be here. That's when I start bringing out those bits. And it's the negative painting method that I tend to use.
I've got another question, if that's okay. You said at the start that you were doing stage 3. So what's stage 1 and 2?
Stage 1 is blank canvas, okay, with a sketch on it. It's only a scribble, Julie, so it's nothing fancy, nothing amazing. I just scribbled. You could also do something in a sketchbook if you prefer. You know, I scribble a lot in sketchbooks. My sketchbooks are pretty nothing amazing. So, you know, to show it to you, you'd be highly disappointed if you saw my sketchbook. I'm more of a canvas painter. I scribble, I write notes in my sketchbook about places, what I see, maybe the emotions that I feel. So I'll write a little bit in my sketchbook, and a figure will be literally a scribble. Then I would paint in a sketchbook. If I'm traveling, for example, I'll then paint in a sketchbook. And there again, it might not be amazing, but it becomes a little painting.
Yeah, so it's like an art journal.
It is, but you know, there are some artists who make these amazing sketchbooks and journals, and they are in themselves works of art.
Yeah. And
I'm not for them. I'm not one of those artists.
No.
Mine happens here, straight
Yeah.
up there as soon as I can, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's stage 2 then?
Stage 2 is pretty much this. Can you see that? It's just getting color down.
Right, yeah.
Pattern, color, filling up your canvas. That is stage 2. Stage 3 is what I have touched on here. You start bringing in the negative painting.
Right, yeah.
That is stage 3. You start honing in on your pattern and your marks and seeing what can you lift out of there? What do you see there? If you don't have a particular plan when you first started, it could be a completely an intuitive process for you. What do you just see in the pattern? Do you see trees? Do you see shapes? What kind of shapes do you see? And then you start bringing them out. And that process is a negative painting. Now, the positive kind of painting elements come with the figures and the illustration that I want to bring into it. So I'm going to probably go straight in with a brush and start marking them out.
Is that stage 4? Positive painting.
Stage 4 is the completed piece, which is this. This is finished, ready to be signed and dusted.
Right, thank you.
That's just me simplifying my process, right? Let me just get this canvas back on. So this is stage 4 completed, but in terms of time scale, you're talking weeks, really,
Yeah.
for this scale of negative, positive painting, negative painting, mark making, going back, changing, covering up, restarting. You're talking days and days and days into weeks, depending on the size.
Yeah. Thank you. That's really helpful.
Should we do a bit of a show and tell with the people left who've done any? I've got one. Anne-Marie sent me one in via messenger, so I'm going to attempt to show you. And it's a picture of you, actually, Kanj.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But everyone carry on while I try and find it. Hang on a sec.
Anybody else after showing what they've done?
I've done several pieces, Kanj, like loads.
Okay, let's have a look. Dee, let's have a look at yours.
They're all like experiments.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So I managed to do a little bit of mark making with the fur on the dog.
Yeah.
And it was very thin paper, much more for pastel, I think.
Yes. Yes.
And I was starting to sort of go into detail before doing this kind of negative and blocking out. So that was really useful to recognize that and think about, you know, building up the stages.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the detail comes on the final home stretch, isn't it? Pretty much. You're talking from stage 3 to 4. That is a lengthy period of getting all the details, the lovely dots and the dashes and the marks, bringing out the eyes and the fur and the expression, because all these characters end up having a personality and an expression on their faces or their body. That's all between stage 3 and 4. I've just blocked it out into stages to help you to sort of simplify it. But it all kind of merges together when you're actually making it. You don't stop and think, hey, I'm in stage 1, I've got a blank canvas, I'm going to freak out now, I'm going to have a cup of tea. You don't, you just, it's stage 1 is the scariest when you have a bad blank canvas, but you know, ignore that cup of tea, just get that brush and get painting. That's what you do.
I'm going to share this picture now while I've got it. Hang on a sec. There you go. Can everyone see it?
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Beautiful.
That is beautiful.
That's you, Kanj.
That is me. How true. That is me. Wow, that's amazing. Moya, let's have a look at yours.
I don't know which one to show.
All of them.
Yeah.
That's one.
Oh, yeah, I can see the palm tree.
Yeah, nice big palm tree.
My Kanj style painting.
wow.
Wow,
I've done
that's
lots of little ones as well, just mark making. You can see those.
Yeah, wonderful.
Whoa.
Mark making, that's it. You just make lots and lots of mark making. And you can see what can you turn it into. They serve as backgrounds, and what you do with them, the possibilities are endless, aren't they, really? With this negative way of painting, there is so much you can lift up from it. Right, anybody else? All good?
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today as part of this project. So please do share any inspired artwork from today on the Facebook page. And of course, we have to say thank you to the Arts Council for supporting us on this project, trying to help our other artists to help artists. It's all about support and collaboration. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Kanj.
thank you,
Thank you.
Kanj.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye,
Yeah.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. I'll put the link
Bye.
on Facebook and for the
Okay.
YouTube if you want to go over it as well.
That'd be lovely, Mandy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
BJ's still with us. Oh, there he is. He's gone.
Please go.